Today we are going to talk about Laravel REST API development and what are its use cases and how we can build one standard REST API in our Laravel application. Learn what REST APIs are, why modern apps depend on them, and how to build a clean Laravel backend that can serve web, mobile, and third-party clients. We will talk about REST basics, what APIs do and why they matter, real use cases about Android web apps, dashboard services that are going to use our API, Laravel build, roads, controllers, validation, JSON responses, and all stuff that we do in our Laravel backend to handle our REST API. Let's speak about that. What is an API? An API or application programming interface is a contract that allows one software system to communicate with another. Instead of directly accessing your application internals, clients send requests to well-defined endpoints and receive structured responses. What we mean about client? Client can be a browser, Android app, iOS app, admin panel, or another backend service that sends the request and receives the response. What about API? The API receives the request and validates it and runs business logic and talks to the database, and after that sends the response to the client. Let's talk about response. The server returns data, usually as JSON along with an HTTP status code that we will talk about the status codes in the next slide. And in simple words, the API is the messenger between the front end and the back end. What is a REST API? A REST API follows a widely used architectural style where data and actions are exposed through resources and standard HTTP methods. In REST, each resource has a clear URL, and operations are mapped to methods like get, post, put, and delete. What is resource oriented? What we mean when we say an API is resource oriented. Instead of calling random actions names, REST usually models things as resources. Users, posts, orders, and products are the sample of that. Predictable and standard. Front-end and mobile developers can quickly understand a REST API because the conventions are familiar and consistent across projects. Also note that each resource has an endpoint such as API posts or API products or API orders that we can access that endpoint and fetch our products or posts. HTTP methods define the action performed on that resource. Responses are usually stateless and return JSON data. So these are the REST API standards, and also REST is popular because it's simple, scalable, and easy to consume. This word sentence here is so useful and so important. Maybe you ask this question, why do we use APIs in real applications? Let's talk about that. Modern products are rarely a single monolithic UI. One backend often serves many clients. A Laravel API lets different applications consume the same data and business logic. For example, A website front end needs user, product, or post data. An Android app needs the same data from the same backend. An admin dashboard maybe needs that data. A third party service may integrate with your platform. So their needs are same, all of them. Okay. So we have a backend API and we have a same logic, for example, and we can give them their data and feed them. For example, there are some samples here. Think about an Android app with Laravel API. The app sends login credentials or request posts, and Laravel validates the request, queries the database, and returns JSON data that the app displays to the user. This is a good example for that. And think about your website that is using Laravel API. Your website can consume the same API endpoints, which means your business logic stays centralized in one place. Or about internal tools like CRM panels, dashboards, and reporting tools can all use the same backend contracts. Scalability. APIs make it easier to split responsibilities later if the system grows into multiple services. That this is the most important reason we use APIs. How API communication actually works. When an app needs something, it sends an HTTP request to the server. The server processes the request and returns a response. This is the basic lifecycle behind almost every modern app. Step 1, client request. The Android app frontend or tool sends the request to an endpoint like API posts to fetch the posts that they need. Step 2 is routing. Laravel matches the incoming request to a route and forwards it to the correct controller. And after that, our business logic, validation, authentication, querying models, and processing data happens here. After that, the JSON response. Laravel returns a structure response with data and an HTTP status code. The full process is here. Look at this part here. This is Android app as our Android app, and think about that. It want to get some data. So the HTTP request is created and Laravel route is called. And after that, the Laravel sends the request to the controller to uh, implement and run our business logic. And after that, our model and database is going to be used. And after that, the JSON response is returned by our application and Android app UI updates, because now the data that this Android app needs is here and is ready. REST uses standard HTTP methods. One of the strengths of REST is that operations are mapped to standard HTTP verbs, which makes API intuitive and predictable. For example, get, read data, used to fetch resources such as all posts or one specific post. We use the get verb for sending a data, create a data. We use post, used when the client wants to create a new resource. For example, when we call API post route, what happens? We can create a post, create a new post. And after that, we have the put verb, update data, used to modify an existing resource. delete data used to remove a resource from the system. Maybe you ask that why APIs usually return JSON. JSON is lightweight, easy to read, and supported by virtually every modern platform. That makes it ideal for communication between Laravel and mobile or front-end applications. We have an example of a JSON response that you can see here. This is simple. As you can see, we have structured data. We have a message here, and the value of the message is put here, and the data and can be structured by this uh, structure that we can see here. For example, we have an ID, a title, content, and we can use them in our, for example, Android app or our website. And also this JSON response is coming from our, for example, backend API that our services are using that. Why JSON is useful? It's easy for JavaScript, Android, iOS, and other platform to parse that JSON response. It's easy, human readable during development and debugging, as you can see, and lightweight compared to many older formats, works perfectly with REST conventions. Status codes matter. APIs should not only send data, they should also clearly communicate the results of the operation using proper HTTP status codes. Let's speak about some of them. Common success codes. For example, the 200, it means OK, request succeeded. Uh, 201, created. 204, no content. And for example, the common errors codes, for example, 400, bad request, invalid request format. 401 unauthorized, and 404, this is famous, not found, and 422 unprocessable entity. Let's speak about our practical example here. Android app connected to a Laravel backend. Imagine you are building an Android app for blog posts. The app should show posts, create new posts, update them, and delete them. Instead of the app talking directly to the database, it communicates with your Laravel API. Android app responsibilities are, for example, render UI screens, collect input from the user, send HTTP requests, display JSON data returned by the API. And the Laravel backend responsibilities are receive requests from the app, validate incoming data, run business rules, store and fetch data from the database, and finally return structured JSON responses. Now let's build the REST API in Laravel. Once the concept is clear, implementing that in Laravel becomes much easier. We will create a simple post API to demonstrate the full REST workflow. Our first step is to run this command using Composer to create project Laravel, for example, REST API demo. My app name is this, and after that, cd to the created folder and use PHP artisan serve command to run your application. What we want to build, list all posts, create a new post, show one post, update a post, and delete a post. These are what we want to create. It's time to work with database layer, create the model and migration. Since our API will manage posts, we first create the model and migration. The migration defines the database structure. Use this command to generate files. PHP Artisan make model post. Our model post is our model name is post, and uh, dash m for creating the migration automatically. And after that, this is our migration example. As you can see here, our table posts and our fields. For example, we have title, ID, content, and timestamps. After that, to run this migration and create our table in the database, we need to use this command php artisan migrate to migrate the table and create the table in the database. After that, we have the controller layer. Our business logic is going to be placed here. Create an API controller. The controller handles the incoming requests and coordinates validation, models, and responses. Look at here. PHP Artisan make controller API post controller dash dash API. What we mean when we run this command, it says go and make a controller in the API folder, and the controller name is post controller, and dash dash API means this is for our API, and use API standard resources and create them automatically for me. Typically generated REST methods are index to list records, store to create record, show to get one record, update to modify a record, and destroy to delete record. This is time for routing. Define API routes in Laravel. Routes tell Laravel which controller should handle a request. With API resource, Laravel creates all standard REST routes for you. For example, look here, we are using route facade and API resource, posts and post controller class. And when we define this route, Laravel will automatically generate these routes for our application. For example, the get verb API posts to get the list of our posts, get API post ID to get and fetch a single post, and post API posts, put API posts and slash ID, and for deleting API posts ID. You may ask why we need IDs here, because for example, when we want to delete a post, we should know exactly what post we want to delete, so we use the ID at the end to delete that specific post. Why this is nice? It keeps your API clean, conventional, and easy for other developers to understand immediately. It's time to create, store a new post with validation. A good API never trusts incoming data blindly. Always validate the request before saving anything. Look at this function here. This is our store function in the API, and we are receiving the request, and we should return a response. Okay, before that we need to validate the request. For example, we are validating the request using validate method from the request, and we want to check that if title is not empty, we have the title in the request, so we use the required rule. And string and max, for example, these are the Laravel basics. And after that, when we validated the request, we are going to create a post with that validated data. And after that, we can return response as a JSON. And as you can see, our data is the post that we create, and now user can see that if we successfully created the post or not, and also we can send the post that we created along with the status code that you can see here, 201 post created successfully. This is how we can fetch and read our data from the API. Reading data is one of the most common API operations. The index method returns a collection and the show method returns a single record. For example, the index method that is responsible to list all posts is here. As you can see, we are going to use the post model to get all posts, and after that we can return response JSON and put our data right there. After that, we have show method that is responsible to only return one specific post. So we need to know the ID and we need to receive the ID from the user, from the client, and after that we can fetch and find our post using that ID, and after that if we found that, we can return the response JSON and that post. Update and delete are also so important if you want to update your post or delete your post. As you can see here, in the update method, we are going to receive the request and the ID, and using that ID, we are selecting our post, that specific post that we are going to update, and after that, we should validate our data that we received from the request. And finally, we can use the update method on the post to put our validated data, our new data, and replace them with the previous data that our post had. After that, we can return response JSON and send any message we want and the data for the user. The delete is so easy. As you can see, we have a function here which is named destroy. We should know to delete which item we have in the database, so we should receive the ID here. We have the ID. After that, we can find the distinct post we have using that ID in the database. After that, we can using delete method to delete that post and send the message to user to notify the user that a post deleted successfully. How to test your REST API? There are many programs that you can use on your PC or your Mac to test your API. The Postman is the most famous app for testing your API. I suggest this application to you. For example, using Postman, you can send a post request to your API and receive the expected return and see if it is okay or it's not okay, so you can handle the problem if is any. After that, what should come next after basic CRUD? Okay, a beginner can stop at CRUD, but production ready API usually grow beyond that. Important next topics are authentication with Laravel Sanctum, API resources for response formatting, pagination for large data sets, filtering and searching, rate limiting, and security. We can create a video for each of them. If you are interested, please comment your idea and tell us which one can be the first item that we are going to create video. If you want to, for example, rate limiting and security to be the first video we are going to create, please comment your idea or other videos if you want. Why they matter? These features make your API safer, more scalable, and easier for mobile or front-end teams to consume consistently. Now you understand REST and can build in Laravel. You can build REST API in Laravel. You learned what APIs are, how REST works, why mobile and web apps use APIs, and how to implement a beginner-friendly Laravel REST API step by step. Um, this tutorial was created to completely describe the REST API in Laravel. Thanks for watching and happy coding. Don't forget to comment your idea and like the video.